What's up, guys? Just want to make this quick pre video pre advertisement show. Like always, Smart Stuff is our sponsor today, and you can see their ad here. Thank you, Sparso, for sponsoring this video. Much appreciated to you guys. As always, links in the description box down below. Please check them out. They do support the show, but don't worry, no added cost to you guys. They are a soap company. Shocker. And they basically help guys like me who are both martial artists and lifters to basically keep clean. Obviously, if you're a martial artist, you don't know who has what. You're sweating everywhere. Same thing with lifting too. You don't know which sweaty person touched what, and yeah, it keeps you safe. It keeps you clean, and it keeps you safe from ringworm and other stuff that could actually be, number one, contagious. Number two, be very harmful for you and other people. So just stay safe. And like I said, it's a great soap company. I actually personally use this, so I can actually tell from experience that hey, this is something that you should definitely check out. But as always, thank you for listening, and here is your podcast.
What's up, YouTube? It's your boy again, coming back to another podcast. The hacker, aka Pranav, and the bat are dealing with some personal stuff, so they're gonna be not on this one. So I'm running this solo time. As always, I am the Rhino. I actually have a guest. I don't know if you follow us on Instagram. This is one of our guests that we have on the show this week. We have Nub Singh. Nub is a homeboy from college for me. I treat him like family. He's gonna be one of my groomsmen at my wedding. We run deep here. We run deep. So Nub, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. I don't know where to begin. I'm way too excited. I know we were chit-chatting before the show about catching up and stuff.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Way too long, brother. But I guess we'll start off with the first question. What have you been doing today? How was your day so far? Pretty easy question, right?
It is, but I've actually been really busy. So actually, I guess I can tell you everything that I've done, which has literally been sitting here the whole day, actually, because I take tutor, I get tutored in Punjabi, because I never really learned how to speak my native tongue when I was young. Right. So now I'm getting tutored in it, and I do them on the weekends because that's the time that my tutor has. And after that, I started doing this TTRPG, this tabletop role-playing game with some friends online. It's the first time I've ever done something like this. So it's exciting. We're playing it's called Masks. And it's like a superhero, concept. So that's like a 2-hour session. And then after that, I had a brainstorm creative session with someone I'm collaborating with on a video idea that we're coming up with, which just ended 5 minutes before I hopped on here. So yeah, it's been a busy day. Good, but busy.
So I know the story of why or how you ended up going into communications and into poetry, but for those of you who are watching on YouTube or listening wherever podcasts are sold, could you explain that for us?
Sure. So I actually started college majoring in engineering. I was really into physics in high school. When I took physics in high school, I was really intrigued by it, and I thought I didn't know what else I wanted to do with my life. So I thought, physics and engineering, I like creating. I thought, it could work. Little did I realize that it involves a lot of math, and I don't like math. But along with the struggles in classes, I also was going through my own personal struggles, and just dealing with a lot of things, and I had no outlet, and then one day bored in my chemistry class, I started writing randomly. Like, it's just this sudden burst of creativity. I just started writing, and by the end of class, I'd written this like 2 or 3 page poem, and I was going, "What is this?" And I just started exploring it more all throughout that summer, because that was the spring semester of my freshman year. So all throughout that summer, I started watching videos on YouTube of Def Jam poetry, these spoken word artists, and I started writing more and more. And by the end of the year, I had my first performance, which was in December, and I walked off stage going, "This is what I want to do with my life." So I knew what I wanted to do, but I knew I couldn't major in poetry.
Right.
Excuse me. So I was trying to find what else I could do, and a friend of mine happened to be part of our college radio station, and he invited me onto the show just like as a guest for fun, because he talks about music a lot, and like metal music and heavy metal and all that stuff, which I'm into. So I was just a guest, and I was chilling, talking with him, just very casual. There was nothing, no like big formal setup or anything. It was very. I just really enjoyed the vibe, and I thought, oh, this is really cool. Like, I didn't realize this avenue exists. Like, I knew radio was a thing, obviously, but I never considered it a possible career path.
Right.
And so after exploring what our school had to offer in that field for like the next semester, I then decided to switch to communication arts. And then in our major, we have to take the like 101, the foundation courses of pretty much every media thing. So radio, journalism, TV, film, all that stuff. And when I took my first film course, even though I initially went in with the mindset of wanting to pursue radio, I realized through Film 101 that I wanted to do film. Like, I just love the medium of the visual art and everything. And so, so I graduated with a degree in film and television. And now I currently work in video marketing in this company, but I want to be a screenwriter.
Nice. That's interesting. I going off back to what you said earlier about how media isn't really an avenue for a lot of Indians. Like, I mean, like, for those of you who are like, watching, listening, I'm Indian too. I'm South Indian. Nav is North Indian with Punjabi background. For a lot of Indians and Asians, we're only selected to go to 3, maybe 4 degree, career paths: doctor, lawyer, engineering, business.
Yep.
That's about it. I mean, I graduated with a mechanical engineering degree, so I'm kind of the poster child here. But Nav is obviously the rebel between the two of us.
Well, that's the funny thing is, like, especially when I tell people I switch from engineering, there's always that reaction, like, oh, like, some people even ask me, like, oh, is that what your parents wanted? I was like, no, I chose that, actually, surprisingly. But yeah, it's very common. So when I switched, though, there were I don't want to say people ever told me like don't do it, but there was a lot of hesitancy from my community, because yeah, exactly what you said, like, they just believe these career paths are the most stable and secure, which is a fair thought process, but they're not the only ones, right? And
Right.
what I've kind of thought about over the years is, like, our communities consume so much art and so much media,
Yeah.
but then they don't want their kids going in that same field that they like love. Like, people love Bollywood, but they don't want their kids trying to become an actor. It's very weird.
Yeah. Oh man, it's really interesting to have that, lack of a better word, dichotomy in our culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like,
Where,
you don't hear like something I've heard some people in my community say to me when I tell them, like, oh, because I also do poetry, like I do poetry as a career, so I travel and I perform and I get paid for it. And so sometimes people ask me, like, oh, what are you doing? And when I meet up with like relatives or people who know me, I'm like, oh, I'm traveling and performing, like I'm doing my poetry. And then I've literally had some people go, what else? I'm like, what do you mean, what else? You don't say that to a doctor, do you? You don't say, I just came home from a shift. Oh, really? What else are you doing? Like, that's not but there's such a different mentality. Like, you can't do this as a full-time thing. It's a very common mentality for our communities to have.
yeah, it's kind of like you can do be an engineer, doctor, lawyer, business guy, and then do poetry on the side, but
Right.
something else has to be the main, putting the square peg into the square hole kind of a thing.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, I know, like I said before, I'm kind of like the poster child for engineers here between the two of us, obviously. So comparing your life as a, like a better word, a engineering student versus a communication student, which are you happy with the move? Are you not
Oh,
happy?
I am overjoyed that I switched. I would have been miserable. I don't know if you've ever seen the film Three Idiots, the Bollywood film, Three
I
Idiots.
It's on my list.
Okay, so the concept of the film, I'm not going to spoil too much, but the concept of the film is that, well, I'm telling you, you don't have to cover yours, but the concept of the film is these students go to college. It's obviously takes place in India, but they're pursuing these typical or like these expected careers from our community. And they even, one of the main characters, who's one of the friends of Amir Khan, who's the main character, he's like not happy with it. Like it's just, it actually explores like that whole element of there are people who pursue these careers even though they're absolutely miserable doing them. There's nothing wrong with doing them, but if you don't want to do them and it makes you miserable, my suggestion is don't do it. Yeah. So that's what I realized when I discovered poetry is I don't want to do engineering. I don't want to do math in any regard. And I love creating and I love that those elements of creativity and of art. And so, you know, the difference in just like my stress of school, just in that alone, was huge. Partially because the majors themselves, like, you know, with my major, it was more about projects. It wasn't tests and, you know, reports and papers as much. It was you make a film. Like that's what the film class is about. They're not going to sit there and lecture you about film. They're going to say, here's what film elements are. Now go use them and try to make a film. Versus engineering is so much just like through the book.
Figure out the derivative of the rocket flowing through space kind of thing.
And it's just like read the textbook and then like understand what it's saying to you, which also doesn't make sense anyway. I feel because like engineering also requires a lot of things to be done. Like it's not just something you sit and analyze. Like you, that's part of it, but you need to do stuff. You need to create. You need to build. But in classes, it's just like, oh, just, you know, read this, understand it, and at least in the classes that I took, maybe in later classes and like higher classes, you know, junior senior year, it's different. But in all my classes, it's way more like theory based or just like, you know, information based. And yeah, just the other major, even the classes that I wasn't like pursuing, so taking radio or taking advertising and PR, like those were fun too, because they're elements of, you know, especially nowadays with social media and everything, being able to advertise and market your content is almost, if not more important than creating the content. You know, we've all seen videos that are, I guess, even though it's subjective, that we all would, most people would agree are like bad or like not great content, but that have so many views or so much attention, you know. So marketing is huge and advertising is huge. And so in those classes, same thing, like make an advertising campaign. It's a 6 weeks, make an advertising campaign for a 6-week, you know, period, which is just really interesting to me.
Very nice. So here's my thing. What have you been doing since officially getting your communications in film or whatever the exact verbiage is here?
Mm-hmm. Kind of so a lot, actually. Actually, when I graduated from college, I had gotten essentially like a freelance / contract position with NYIT, where I was creating like promotional video content for student activities.
I'm going to pause you right there and quote Michael Scott, oh, how the turntables.
Yeah. Sorry, no, it's fine. And so, yeah, like, cause you know, I was very involved with student activities and all that. And so upon graduation, I was just like, hey, like, you know, it'd be good to have media content to help you like promote within the community or, you know, promote to others, you know, to prospective students and things like that. So they're like, one of the advisors who I was, you know, I had good relationship with was like, do you want to do it? I was like, yeah, sure. Are you gonna pay me? They're like, absolutely. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. So for a while I was doing that, and then I was working, you know, doing videography and video editing for a company that would do like birthdays and weddings and that kind of stuff. So that was interesting. I worked at Best Buy for a little bit. That was not related to my degree at all, but like I needed a job because the one truth is, it is, you know, there is more security in those other fields that we mentioned. There just is. I mean, I have no problem admitting that. But so in the time that I didn't have a job in my field, I was just working at Best Buy making money. But in 2016, I started traveling and performing and like getting paid to do it. I'd been performing since 2011, but 2016 is when I had my first paid gigs, and I actually went to Texas, Tennessee, and Louisiana to do shows at 5 different colleges.
Mhm.
I don't know if you want more, but like,
here I thought this will take like 45 minutes. I'm sorry.
yeah.
But for those of you who don't know, I actually used to live in Memphis, Tennessee for 3 months back in 2016. You can actually find that old vlog stuff when I first started my first channel, like back then. But anyways, yeah, that was a fun time.
Nice.
Yeah. So where? Now I forgot all the questions. Great. Um, going back to what you said towards the beginning, you were now picking up Punjabi, which is your mother tongue, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Why? Because I know why, because I saw the Instagram post, but for those of us who don't know why.
Okay. Well, it's the same reason that like I started having people pronounce my name correctly. um, which is, so I'm sure many South Asian kids can relate to, but yeah. But yeah, like, and just this is a tangent, but people would always call me Nav in school from like high school onwards, actually even middle school onwards. Yeah.
One of them was me.
It's fine. I never corrected anybody. I never told anybody to call me Nav, which is the proper pronunciation. But back in 2017, I had went to India for a cousin's wedding, and then obviously you visit family while you're there. And 2017 was the 70-year anniversary of the partition, where India became India and Pakistan, for those who don't know. And so,
and Bangladesh.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, India got separated into many pieces.
Yeah.
But my grandfather, my Nanaji, as it's said in Punjabi, he was featured on BBC Hindi. And they just like interviewed him and talked to him about like, you know, just like his experience, I guess, because he was around when partition, he's over 90 years old. He was around when partition happened. And seeing that before I went to India that year, something about it in my head just made me think more about my culture, my roots. And so when I finally went to India, I sat down with him one day and I just had him tell me his whole journey after partition. Like, where did he go? Where did he move to? What did his family do? Everything. And I have it all recorded on my phone in a notes, like a voice note. And sitting there listening to him explain it was just this moment of realization that I'm like, I just felt like I was disrespecting my culture and my family by not even getting people to say my name right. Like, they go through all this struggle and all this journey and people can't even say Nav. It's not hard, you know? And how this pertains to me picking up Punjabi or being tutored in Punjabi is the same idea. It's just like the next step in me, like further connecting to my roots, because, you know, not only do I want to be able to talk to my relatives in India more, but I want to write poems in Punjabi. I think that would be really cool, so that they can listen and that other people can listen and that I can really express my culture in that way. And so, yeah, it was just a matter of like, I'd wanted to do it for a long time. First, I tried to learn through my parents, but like, they don't have formal education. They just grew up with the language. So they don't, you know, think about the ins and outs. They don't think about the grammar stuff. So sometimes when I ask them questions, they're like, huh, I don't know why it is. That's the way it is. But like, so, and they don't have the time. We don't always have the time to talk in that way, right? We're all working, we're all busy. So finally, you know, doing nothing else during the pandemic either. So I was like, it's better, like, might as well do it now. I've waited this long. And so like, I think in December, I want to say, so it's only been like 3-4 months I've been getting tutored. But like already I feel way more comfortable. I talk to my parents in Punjabi more now, not completely, but I feel way more comfortable doing it. Whereas like last year, if I tried to, it was very like timid. I was so uncomfortable with the words coming out of my mouth.
Right.
Versus now I'm just like, there's still some uncertainty with certain words, but general conversation I can carry, you know?
Right. Like, I understand what you're saying. Like, like I said before, I'm South Indian. Like, my parents are from Tamil Nadu, which is basically the India side of the strait between India and Sri Lanka. And growing up, I like you. I grew up here. I was born and brought up here in California. Um, Unable to grow up with the language because your parents, my grandparents, just grew up with the language. So, and I don't know if this part applies to you or not, but a lot of my relatives only speak Tamil,
Mm,
and I'm not, and obviously my English is better than my Tamil, so it's like, hey, let me at least learn to at least communicate with some of my family members who may not speak English. If that makes any sense.
right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing as, you know, they only speak Punjabi, and like they weren't here obviously, so I couldn't even be around them to like pick it up while I was young, you know,
Right.
and then my parents, especially because we lived, and maybe it's the same for you, we lived in a very non-South Asian neighborhood. There weren't
Yeah.
many South Asians or Punjabis or anybody around. So it was just a matter of, I'm around English all the time, so I'm gonna speak English all the time, kind of thing.
Yeah, I grew up in La Crescenta, California. That's where I was born and raised, and that's a very non-Asian community.
Right.
Very politely. Um, so it's pretty interesting for that. If you don't mind me asking, like you said earlier, your grandfather grew up before and after the partition. If you don't mind me asking, how was that experience? Because a lot of us, a lot of Indians may have not experienced that or may not have relatives who have experienced that.
Right. I have to genuinely listen to the voice note again because like it was so much information that day.
Right.
I didn't retain a whole like I think it's like an hour long recording. Like yeah, I literally just sat there and like very few interruptions. I maybe asked a question here or there just to get like a bit more clarification. But and again, at that like I don't know if it's same with you, but people who live in India and live in Punjab and speak Punjabi speak it different than like sometimes people who speak it here.
Yeah.
It's like, or just depending on the area. Sometimes it's just different areas have different like village, like people who are from like the villages or like, you know, more rural areas have like a rougher Punjabi, and it's like still hard for me to understand even if we share the language. So like I couldn't really tell you too much because I don't remember it that well because it was a lot to retain. But it was a lot. Like I just remember they'd moved several times and like there was a lot. I think he has like 5, 6 siblings as well. So it's not just like, yeah, my families are big. Like my grandmother
All
was like,
Indian families are big.
yeah, yeah. We when we went to India that time, my mom decided to get together with like all her cousins and like obviously their families, their kids and everything. It was like almost 50 people, just our like my mom's
Sounds
cousins.
about right.
Like
Sounds about right.
it was all like a party in and of itself. It was great.
That's why you have to go to the family reunions to make sure you don't actually hit on your cousin or someone. So, but yeah, like it's interesting, like to hear like someone like I don't want to say someone else, but like someone else's family going through the partition because like as far as I know, my family didn't go through the partition. I could be absolutely wrong about that, but as far as I know, they haven't. But yeah, here we are.
It's a there's not a lot of discussion or even like education about the partition here in the West, which is very frustrating because like people just, I think all they know is that they they became separate countries, and that's like the extent. They don't realize like all the actual like
Issues that came out.
yeah, the issues and the harm, like the physical violence and everything that occurred during, and then all the issues that exist post. And I think that lets people kind of just, you know, brush it off and like just not think about it much. So yeah, it's very
Like there's still issues going on today between Pakistan and India, and maybe even between India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. But at least more so with India, Pakistan, there's like a lot of stuff just going on between the two countries, which is bull in my opinion. But then again, I'm more of an outsider looking in.
yeah, there's a lot. It's I don't even fully grasp it, obviously, because I wasn't born and raised there.
Exactly.
And they get very defensive. If you say anything about either place, is very defensive. People from there, like as someone who, again, I wasn't born and raised in Punjab, but like I have a connection to my land, my homeland, and so if I critique my homeland, there are people who live there in India who will be like, well, you're what they call an NRI, a non-resident Indian. And so like your opinion doesn't matter. Like I get told that whenever I talk about India, and it's
I get called a coconut,
yeah,
which for those of you who don't understand, it means brown on the outside, white on the inside.
yeah. It's I've gotten called that too by like, but I've been called that by people here, right? I get called I get told my opinion on India doesn't matter by people in India
Yeah.
because I don't live there. So they say I can't, have an opinion on my homeland, which I get to an extent because obviously I don't know all the inner workings, but like it's still my family lives there. I'm from there. Like I have a connection, but they just dismiss it as like, oh, I'm a Western Indian, so screw you. Like it's very weird.
You have no right. Damn you.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But yeah, going on to more of a serious topic. I know a lot of Sikhs post 9/11 have been harassed because of, and I do apologize for I'm about to say, the turban. Um, how has that affected your life? Like, I know, like I'm brown, no surprise there, and my experiences as a fellow brown guy is different from a lot of other people. So that's my question.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, my experience has been complex, I guess to say the least. The first time I ever dealt with anything related to like racism or prejudice because of my faith, especially because of 9/11, was in 2002. So it was the year after 9/11. I was just like walking back from lunch or gym. I don't remember what it was. I was in 5th grade, just walking back,
Yeah.
and this classmate of mine just says, "Why don't you take that bomb off your head?"
Oh,
Yeah.
that's not good.
Yeah, and nothing happened. I don't know if there was. I don't remember if the teacher was there or not. I don't know what happened. Like, nothing happened to him, obviously, but it was a very weird experience because, like, I'm 10 years old. What do I know about planes and bombs? And like, I can't even drive. Why would I be able to fly? Like, it was just like a weird thing. But it was the first time I really, recognized that people look at me different because of this, because of my turban and because of my skin color. And then, I hate saying this, but fortunately, I've only really dealt with like verbal harassment. I've never been physically assaulted personally, but like my community has been plenty. There's so many instances of hate crimes, and like even recently, actually, there have been instances that have been happening, in this year. And it's been, yeah, it was a challenge when I was younger because I wasn't comfortable in my identity. Like even though I've never cut my hair, which is one of the tenets of the Sikh faith, and even though I've always had a turban, like when I was younger, even in college up to a certain extent, I wasn't really like following the faith. I wouldn't have really said like, oh, I'm this, person of faith. I don't like using the word religious anyway, so that's why I'm not using that word. But like, I wouldn't say like, oh yeah, I would tell people I'm a Sikh, but I didn't really truly adhere to it or believe it, kind of thing. So when I was young, sorry.
I was just going to say, would it be fair for me to call you a non-practicing Sikh?
At the time, yeah. Yeah, like I kept the articles of faith, and I would call myself it, but I wasn't really practicing it. Yeah. But actually through my poetry, I became way more interested and had a deeper desire to connect to my faith, which is what has brought me to where I am now, where I'm very into my faith and I practice it, not perfectly. I mean, who really does?
Right.
But I'm way more invested in adhering to the principles and living a life by the tenets of the Sikh faith. And so now the comments and those things don't really bother me anyway, because I'm just so assured in my faith. The only concern I ever have is it impacting other people. But like, I create content on Instagram and TikTok, and I do get quite a bit of racism on there. Not Instagram as much, because Instagram is mostly people who follow you, but like TikTok, your videos can reach anybody. And sometimes they reach the wrong side of TikTok. I've actually shared comments I've gotten on like Instagram. I made a post sharing comments I've gotten on my TikTok videos.
I think I remember that one.
Yeah, they're colorful.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hate, and for no reason too. Like, I've done nothing in those videos that warrant it. It's usually just me talking about my faith, but someone feels compelled to like look at this and say something because they think a certain way. And so it's been very interesting being that visible, not only like with my identity, but on a platform where I now have over 100,000 followers, which is weird. But then it just brings about the more visibility, the more you can get shown to people, but that means also you could get more hate.
But to quote legendary Tupac, at my adversaries be playing hating.
Yeah, I mean, I know that what I'm doing is because I'm never imposing my faith on someone, right? I'm never telling someone, hey, you should follow this or you need to believe this. I'm just sharing what I believe. And so it's very interesting, and I feel like kind of telling that people respond with just hate. It's just like, okay, so there's something that you're struggling with personally that you decide to project onto me, I guess. I don't know. It's strange. But yeah, like I said, it doesn't bother me as much anymore. Sometimes if a video goes, like, I've had a few videos go viral, which I hate saying anyway, but like I've had them get a lot of attention, and then like if I get a slew of comments like that, then it's some sorts to like bug me. But like once in a while, I'm just like, I laugh because, I mean, you can be bold behind a screen as much as you want. I don't really worry what you have to say to me. Especially when I said nothing of like hate or of disgust or any reason to be upset at me. You just have this, not you obviously, but the people who comment have this image and this preconceived notion of my look, of my identity, and decide that they want to be hateful. And I learned a long time ago that carrying hate in your heart is literally the biggest waste of energy.
Yeah.
Straight up, there's nothing more wasteful than just being hateful.
What's the I think this was from Star Wars, but hate breeds anger, that breeds something else. Yeah, like it was episode 1, Phantom Menace, for what Yoda was talking about it.
I'm pretty sure I could be butchering it, but I'm pretty sure it's fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to the dark side. There might be one more step in there, but like that's pretty much the journey. And that's true. Think about it. Those people have a fear of this look, not of me even, because they don't know me. They just have a fear of this image, and that makes them angry because they're afraid of it. And then that anger leads to them being hateful of it, and then that leads to not only, the problem is when it extends beyond just them being hateful, like verbally, like that's, I mean, obviously they shouldn't be hateful verbally, but that's one thing. When it gets to the point of physical, violence, that's where I really like, that's where it really becomes a serious issue.
Yeah, I just Googled it. There is one more step in there. It was fear is, I'm straight up looking at quoting this from Yoda. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
I knew it.
Yeah, I knew it was like suffering or something there too. So
yeah, and suffering is
which is
I love
true.
Yoda.
Yeah, which is unfortunately true in today's society. Like if you think about it.
Yeah, and the problem with that is the hate, and that leads to suffering, isn't just the suffering of that individual, it's to other people, because you tend to spread that hate to other people. And so it's but for me personally, like my faith is what really, it's like a shield, for me. Like I truly wholeheartedly believe in my faith, and I have such a comfort in my sick identity that people's hate doesn't really, I'm not going to say it never phases me, but it's not something that I dwell on too much.
Right. Has your religious background affected your poetry in any way?
100%, and vice versa. Like my poetry is affected my religion or my faith, because I started writing at a point where I wasn't really practicing, right? And writing about I started writing about a lot of my experiences with my faith and how I felt like not only did I feel disconnected, but I felt like my community wasn't supportive or, adhering to these principles and these kinds of things. That was a big reason why I distanced myself in the first place, because it's easy to say like, hey, let's all be good people and love each other. But then when you see in practice, people are not doing that, you start to wonder what's going on here. Like, you're telling me all this stuff, but you're not behaving in that way. And then my thing was, and I feel like a lot of people do this, is they put it all on the religion, when it's just like, it's the people. And I get it, yes, the people represent the faith, they represent the community, but the principles, at least like in Sikhi, don't change just because someone is being hateful, right? Like, what my scripture says about showing compassion and love to all doesn't change just because someone in my community is not adhering to that.
Right.
So I had to come to that realization that what I focus on is the principles and the ideals of my faith, and not so much worry about how, not that I shouldn't worry how people are representing it, because that's important, because they can make it look bad, but not let my belief in my faith hinge on how people are practicing theirs or failing to practice theirs in some cases.
Okay. That makes sense.
But yeah, so anyway, like, I wasn't into my poetry. Oh, I'm sorry. Having those experiences of this hypocrisy and all these different things were ideas I was writing about in my poetry. And eventually, as I started to connect more and more to my faith, the more I would write about that connection and the spiritual journey that I'm on, and the ability to feel the presence of the divine and the light in the world, which is all entangled in my faith. And that would come out in my poetry. And I have so many poems about my faith.
Nice. I don't mean to put you on the spot now, but would it be okay for you to share one of your poems?
Sure. Does it have to be about my faith, or can it be anything?
It could be about anything.
Okay. I just have to think in a really quick second. I wasn't ready, so I just need to pick a poem.
Yeah, no worries. Just spit them bars.
I'll do this one that I do. I open up with this poem pretty much every show that I do, because I just feel like it thoroughly encapsulates who I am, and, as the title of the poem is, what I'm about. And so here we go. First-gen American Sikh citizen, I gotta step up now, I can't be sitting in. Can't be quitting when there's so much to be done. Been writing for so long that the journey's just begun. Many battles to be won till we're shining like the sun. To make a world that's better for our daughters and our sons. So while y'all are having fun, I'll be on the run. Chasing my dreams till I make it to the top. Cause given the green light, so I'm never gonna stop. Keep climbing up the ladder while the rest of them drop. And with every ink blot, I am taking my spot and making my shot. Not waiting like the rest, call me the best or just blessed. Either way you can't mess. Cause it's homegrown success already planted the seed. So the microphone in hand is all I ever need. For writing is my passion. It's the reason that I breathe to make ways for change. It's the reason that I dream, and justice is my goal. It's the reason that I bleed.
Hey, I know I'm the only one clapping here, but remember, there's 1,000 of us clapping behind you.
Thank you.
Cool. First of all, thank you for sharing that poem with us. Also, here's my question: if someone were in your situation in college that is in doing something that they don't like engineering or lawyer, pre-med, whatever you want to call it, and wants to go into poetry or something along the lines you're going through, how would you do it? Or what advice would you give, rather?
I mean, I definitely figure out, I guess you won't know for sure, but figure out if this is something you are genuinely interested in and can see yourself doing as a career, right? Because like that choice to pursue something as a career, obviously you can change it. It's not like you can never change careers, but if you're going to invest the time and the money, then it's almost like, well, why would I just suddenly do something else? I mean, people do it all the time, to be fair, but if it's something you're thinking about where like you don't want to do one major, one field, and you want to look into something else, is like really explore it. This comes to an issue with the education system more so than anything, but yeah, it's just about exploring it. Like the beauty of any like art field, at least, is there's ways to explore it without like committing in terms of like, excuse me, your major. You can go to film festivals, or you can go to open mics for performance arts. You can go to theater performances or be part of them. Because the other thing is, one thing that I didn't realize is the variety of jobs. Like, it's not just about being the actor or being the radio show host or being the director. Like, there's writers, there's costume designers, there's set designers, there's casting directors. There's so many different fields. Those are just a few. There's so many different areas within film production or radio production that you can do one of those things. You don't have to be the spotlight, because not everybody likes that, and it's not for everyone. So like, really explore the breadth of those fields, because, for instance, I love video editing. Even though I love performing, I don't want to actually be an actor anyway, so it's fine. I want to be a screenwriter and a video editor. Like, those are my two pursuits for video, for film or television, really. But I think a lot of times we get caught up in just like, oh, I'm going to be an actor. But if you're not interested in being an actor, you don't have to then just not pursue that industry. There's so many different things you can do. So I think that's the biggest thing, is understanding what options there are, because you might be a great storyteller, so we might need you as a writer. I believe people's voice deserves to be heard, and so especially when it's like our community, when we don't have enough of our voices out there, I definitely think more of us need to be writers and be the ones helping to tell our stories. Because, like, I could be put on screen, right? Let's just say for some reason someone wanted me to be in this movie. That's cool, but if the people writing the story have no idea about my faith and my community, it's not going to be a good story. It's just, they're going to totally butcher it. They need to know something. So it's either they educate themselves, which I can't guarantee they will, or someone from the community is writing and telling the story. That's the best way.
And kind of going off of that, like, if they're doing like self-education, they may not do a good job in the self-education.
Right.
And
yeah, for sure.
Going off of what you said earlier, it's like there's not a huge representation in like the Western media, like especially for like Asian, South Asian, like, I mean, communities. Like, there might be like one or two actors like Jet Li or Jackie Chan, but what roles do we play? Especially us like Indians, we play the doctor, the cab driver, the stereotypical, like, remember, stereotypical jobs. It's like, so it's like, it kind of makes us feel like we are just emotionless robots that do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, yeah. So, I mean, it's really cool to see a fellow Asian in the what's that movie?
Shang-Chi, yeah.
Thank you, Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. I was like, what is that name of that Marvel movie that's coming out there?
Yep. Simu Liu. Yeah. It's awesome. I'm hyped. And also, they're coming out with Miss Marvel, the TV show on Disney Plus. She's a Pakistani American, Muslim Pakistani American. Like, and that's the other thing. Like, a lot of people, when they think South Asian, they just think of India, but like South Asian is so many more other countries too. So like that diversity of that, even
with the word Desi, the word Desi kind of seems like only India, but it's also like Bengalis, Pakistanis, the Myanmar, Burmese, whatever what the right word is, Nepalese and Bhutanese possibly could be added in that mix.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, sorry, I can do a rant right now. I don't want to.
Dude, trust me. I mean, a lot of videos I make on TikTok are talking about representation and South Asian stereotypes. Like, you mentioned a couple of them, like, but the biggest one for me is like the convenience store owner with the accent. And it's like yeah. And it's like, why is that those few things, those few categories, and they always have an accent? Like, it's just, we're in like second and third generation South Asians now in the US. Like, most people don't, you and I do not have a Indian accent, like, so if I were to go on TV for some reason and they told me to do an accent as a character, unless it made sense where like we're in India, I would be like, why am I doing this? There's no need. And people will say like Baljeet is a controversial example from Phineas and Ferb, because people are like, oh well, like he was born in India, and it's like, yeah, but the writers wrote it that way. Just don't write him don't write him being born in India. Write him being born in the US, and he won't have an accent.
Or any
solved.
or any other Western country, because we're literally everywhere.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Just have him born in the West, and he can still be Indian. He can still have some of the, other traits that Indians commonly have, like whatever. Even though I don't like those either, where it's like parents are always strict, they're always focused on grades and this and that. But like that can still exist without the accent. Like if we can start with just getting people away from like kids born in the US or like kid characters having an accent, that would be a huge step in my opinion.
Right.
I get the parents having accents. That makes sense, right? But like a kid in the US does not need to have an accent. Just write them that they were born in the West.
Yeah.
The really simple fix that requires no change to the story or the character.
Yeah, literally. I was talking to my parents a little while ago, saying that my dad was complaining about why are there so many Indians in the world? I'm just like, bruh, there's a probably good reason behind it, which are very adult themed, and where there's probably an Indian restaurant in the middle of Antarctica run by a North Indian. Just saying.
Probably.
Literally everywhere.
Yeah. We just talked about it earlier. Like our families are huge. So that's why there's so many.
Literally, like you were saying earlier, like your grandparents had like 5 or 6 kids. Same thing with my grandparents. My grandmother's the oldest of like 6 or 7. My maternal grandfather's like one of like I think like 6 or 7. My dad's side is like my grandfather's like one of like 8 or 9, which is like first of all, like here in the West, I grew up with like as you are. I grew up here in the West, and it's like having more than 3 kids is like a lot. Just saying.
Yeah.
So I'm just like 8 kids, 9 kids. How the hell do you have the money to feed them, let alone do anything else?
Yeah. Yep. It's wild. It's wild.
Hell. Hell, I'm funny that they're bringing it up is that my parents are trying to get me married off now. That marriage gap is coming to. It's like, bruh, I'm good.
Yeah, I get it.
Well, this was a fun conversation, man. Just again, thank you for being on the podcast. I guess we'll end it here, man.
Yeah, this works. I think it's
Just one last question.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
Oh, okay. Nav, N-A-V, the poet on TikTok, Instagram. Technically, I have a Twitter, but I don't really use it. So if you want to, you can follow me there. But and then I actually have a spoken word album out on all major streaming platforms. So Apple, Spotify, iTunes, Pandora, Amazon.
If you send me that link, I'll put it in the description box on YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. Do you just need one or multiple ones? I usually send Spotify because it's just like
as many as you are feeling comfortable with.
Okay.
Let me put it that way. Also,
good.
I'll put your Instagram and your TikTok stuff here in the description box down below on YouTube. And yeah, like I said, you can follow me on Instagram at Firehawk Archer 1. On my 2 other YouTube channels, Firehawk Archer 1 and 2. He has 2 different channels for that. You can follow the Instagram at the Rhino and the Bat podcast on Instagram. We don't have a TikTok on any platforms yet, but you can also follow the same on Twitter. I personally have a Twitter that I'm sort of active on. Firehawk Archer 1. Very easy, very clean. As always, have a good one. See you in the next episode. Peace.